such as comprehending fundamentals of common law, comprehending the sentient living man and woman distinguished from person, corporation, distinguishing the fact that the United States Corporation Company is a private foreign company that's bankrupt and is not a country. And so when you start getting to the information exposing this stuff, because most of them are leeches in the platforms of the institutions that have been raping our people, logically, they don't want people like me or me talking like this, or redundantly putting this information out, because it's telling you where your root of your problem is. If you fix the root of the problem, the rest of the stuff will fall in place. This is why over the years, certain principles, as you already know with my writings, I've written about many subject matters, but you'll see most of my conversation is focused on the civics relative to these institutions and the contractors for these institutions that have been robbing our people, stealing their birthright, and murdering them with genocide principles, etc., under the guise of Planned Parenthood, human rights services, and stuff like that, when all of these institutions are actually doing the opposite, aside from selling, helping families, etc. They've been in fact selling baby parts and killing your babies and using them for food, and there were other purposes too. And they've always been doing it. And for you, many of you people out there pretending that you didn't know that this was going on, keep on pretending. However, for the few who listen, become active and not passive. And also stop giving your thousands of notes and energy to how do you say, Johnny come lately opportunists who are in this movement for one purpose, and that's because they have nothing else to offer, and they want to continue to keep our people in a dependency position, pretending to be helping them.
There's a question out there. Okay, how do we establish jurisdiction? How does one establish jurisdiction?
Jurisdiction is a natural fact. Now, for those of you who are out there, understand and comprehend that there's levels of jurisdiction. In personam jurisdiction is relative to this being, the physical. Subject matter jurisdiction is relative to whatever subject is concerning, whether it's about persons or property. So that'd be corporate entities, inheritances, estates, private property, private rights, private liberties, unalienable rights, etc. Or even where you have privilege dispensations, etc. Subject matter, law, status, international law, etc. Status, that would be subject matter jurisdiction. And you have what is known as territorial jurisdiction, and that would you would deal with whether you're recognizing the quo warranto operations of any government alleged official, whether he or she is legitimate, and that would deal with national principles or the aggregate land, etc., whether a being who claims authority actually has that authority that they claim. So that would be in the nature of quo warranto. So that'd be territorial. So you're dealing with aggregate land, aggregate provable jurisdictional boundaries or territorial jurisdictions, etc., like that.
Like my fence.
Making it clear. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that would be territorial jurisdiction.
So how would, and in my case, so I'm establishing that fence is on my property because I have paper.
That would be determined by what? A survey.
So I have a survey that shows
so
that.
Now you have what you call your latitude, longitude. Now you have your cosmological, right, degrees of measurement. You see.
So if someone wants to establish jurisdiction,
now the trespass is when the line is crossed. So now when you
in any of the three instances.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's the being,
yeah.
when it's this flesh,
yeah.
How does one
in
personam establish?
That's called improper person.
Okay, improper persona.
So when you hear the term improper person, what it means being in one proper person in personam jurisdiction. That would mean if someone called you an elephant, you would not allow that to stand without a rebuttal or without what is known a declaration of error or writ of error. You say, I am not elephant. I am pedigree Moorish, territorial American. That would be in personam jurisdiction. All right. So that would be proper person. If you would, if someone called you black and you did not rebut it, then that would mean they trespassed on your birthright and you did not oppose, rebut, reject, and that being who would be doing the trespass would usually do that with the intention of trespassing against your rights, liberties, or hereditaments. That is the purpose of branding. Comprehend what that is. And this is where proper person argument would come in, or what would be known in an international venue as a national declaration, or what you would call a nationalization. If you have a situation where there is a political privilege afforded or offered to an alien of a particular jurisdiction, that process would be called naturalization. And there you would see often where you see them issue green cards to people of other political nation states or political jurisdictions for temporary activities or physical stay in another political jurisdiction. All of these would be matters of what you call in personam jurisdiction. The subject matter would be the issues presented. The territorial jurisdiction would be your aggregate lands or your aggregate physical, political, territorial positions. So essentially you would have in personam jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, and you would make your refined arguments under either. When it comes to a controversy in relationship to those matters, status would be the first issue argued or presented. And so the status, then you must be in your proper person to have what is called standing in trade, in honor, in hereditaments. And this is again why people who have been conquered have been branded by those who have conquered them in order to remove them from standing of heritability, so that they could steal your estate, steal your rights, steal your labor, etc. Which is why you've seen the hybrid Europeans establish the practice of calling Moors, Negroes, blacks, and colored people. And when it comes to Noble Drew Ali, you could see that when he established the old Canaanite temple, he countered that with the truth of the pedigree of the people, which logically caused problems for the United States corporation, company owners, and traders, human traffickers. So again, and you can see that many of the problems that we have politically and economically today with the people, many of them are not aware that a lot of our economic, social, and structural root problems are rooted in those areas. Not being aware of that, logically, people who didn't know these things would think that they were your personal opinions rather than recognizing or knowing that these are principal statuses around the planet, on the planet Midgard. So of course the firmament, you'll recognize that these principles of nationalization and naturalization take place every day. Our people have not been made aware of these things. However, they've been held falsely to a naturalization status that actually stole their birthright when actually such processes never lawfully took place, but yet that status is assumed under the black codes. and our people, many of them not knowing that that must be rebutted, have been held as state property under the principle that they have abandoned their birthright, and therefore the hybrid Europeans operating as quote unquote the de facto government in the Western Hemisphere had jurisdiction over their persons under the United Nations and the International Monetary Fund and the Bank of International Settlements, which is what's really been happening to us. And so logically, a lot of people who have been working for the Bar Association members see a great opportunity to steal from our people before they really wake up to what's really been going on. So many of your trolls come from people who are associated in that gray area who have been seizing upon our people. They really are displeased with me.
Good question. ZZJ Children says, Islam, once the hybrids have finished fighting over our stuff, what happens next with us, i.e. honorable nationalized Moors? Do we then take a seat at the table and reestablish our authority, etc., etc.?
In honor, this is when you look at Noble Drew Ali's motives, he said set forth for us an example or pattern with the Moorish divine and national movement, so you have a comprehension of recognizing why it's necessary for us to be back in harmony with the ethical and moral principles of our ancient mothers and fathers. This is why you declaim your name, nationality, and religion. Now, of course, when you go back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers, you discover that our concepts of what religion are or have been actually wrong. So the further you go back, you find out the true origins, and you'll find out that our concepts have been wrong and they have been corrupted. But it's up to us to do that study and reattach ourselves with the principles of our ancient mothers and fathers. Because when you start taking your places back among the affairs of men, you must be moral and ethical. You can't argue against immorality and unethical activity of the hybrid Europeans under their unum sanctum operations when you yourself have not been practicing honorable principles or maintaining those principles, which is Moorish culture. And so the principal argument is that we must be moral and ethical, and we must stand for justice, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, just as we expect others to. And the truth of the matter is that many of us have fallen short of those principles. And you'll see a lot of people come on board absolutely have fallen short of those principles. And so those principles must be reestablished. And logically, you don't find it hard to get along with people who are being moral and fair, that you got to watch them every minute because they're trying to get in your pockets, trying to sell you something that already belongs to you. You don't have to worry about that, do you? Do you? Isn't that what we basically been asking of the hybrid Europeans who've been imitating? So shouldn't we maintain those principles ourselves? Because that's our culture. It came from us. The principles of government came from Africa. They didn't come from the hybrid Europeans. They came from the original Europeans, who are Phoenicians. It's just that the hybrid European takes credit for a lot of things he didn't produce. However, he's corrupted a lot of things that he's taken over. That's what you must understand and comprehend it. And it doesn't mean that a lot of the Moors haven't been corrupt, because that's part of the problem too.
Here's a question. I think they mean erudition, but from Peace Love, what does erudition mean?
Erudition is more akin to what you would call a proper, more pure education to bring out and to draw out those principles and disciplines that establish for human development and ascension, etc. What you generally recall in education, but more on a higher spiritual and political level of the same thing.
The interesting thing when you talk about erudition is that in other countries, by the time the children get to what we would call, say, what middle school, they have what high schoolers or even begin maybe first year college would have. I mean, by the time they get out,
many of them speaking 4 or 5 languages fluently,
right.
and it's
So
common, even in
that's erudition.
poor countries. But our people have been tricked into thinking that they were being educated by John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates with the Board of Education, General Board of Education, which is why we tell people to read the philosophy page. Our people here have been trained for generations under animal husbandry, and we've been taught arrogantly that we had a superior so-called education than others, when actually we were being used as a platform for war fodder, for conquest purposes, against our own people around the world. We were not erudite. We were educated under animal husbandry. There's a distinction. That's why you hear me use erudition more often than education.
Yeah, that is so true.
However, also, you recognize that as people from around the world have been coming to the Maghreb, over the last few decades, our people are beginning to recognize that that they have been cheated in their assumed educations, because they see people coming here from around the world and are making economic and political progress at a rate that many of our people are confused about or unfamiliar with, not recognizing that our people have actually been miseducated. So like, how you've been played, and that you haven't dawned on you've been played, and our people haven't I guess people have been convinced that they're not unlike many of our people who have been taught self-righteous religious concepts, think that they're saved and nobody else is, and then discover that they're the ones that really are dumb. They're the ones that really are poor. They're the ones that their families are falling apart. They're the ones that the IRS has taken all of their estates. They're the ones that are getting abused. They're the ones that are being packed in the prisons. They're the ones whose youth are dying on the streets, younger and younger. But yet they've been boasting about spirituality and education and being special, and discovering that, no, you ain't. We've been had. Get over it and start making an effort to fix this thing.
Here's a good question from Valier 2007. Will Moorish nationality provide protection if military operations / control begins on the land? Will other tactics be required?
Logically, but for the most part, again, this is again why over the years you see me redundantly speaking certain things, because you can see, except for a handful here and there, the people have not grasped onto certain principles, because they've been told by other persons that these things that I've been saying is my personal opinions, and they're not knowing that these are fundamental rules of order. We're thinking that this is just club information that Noble Drawley taught, that a few Moors, that it's a religion or an opinion, and have failed. They hear it, they look at it, but fail to examine it, therefore fail to adopt it, thinking that it is something separate from themselves. And this is back to the point where people need to understand the principles that Noble Drawley taught are universal principles. They keep thinking it's a club type thing for Moors who go to the Moorish Science Temple only in North America. It's for the nations of the earth. That's why I tell people to read the Divine Warning by the Prophet for the Nations, because it not only gives you the platform that Noble Drawley presented for our people, but it gives you the pattern where you can study, and so you can know what to look for. And it also immediately let you know those who've been misrepresenting this information. And logically, because so many people are upset, it shows you how many people have actually betrayed the cause. And logically, again, as people begin to know for themselves They don't need me. They don't need you. We need each other. They don't need to follow anyone. They need to come together with other people who have knowledge and get things done. And logically, because remember, much of the injury that comes to our people is the fact that we're being taken advantage of by people who have been falsely impersonating as government, or people who've been impersonating religious dogma as religion and have been sucking off of the people, robbing you, your families, of your wealth and trying to keep you in a needy and dependent position and sucking off your injury rather than telling you the truth about what's going on and starting telling you to encourage you to take responsibility. And then let's come together on that activation of responsibility. But you cannot serve Rome's false concepts and get the benefit of your estate, because their operations is estate theft. That is, you may call it colonization or colonialism. What it is genocide, land and estate theft, and it's cheating. That's what's going on. Not racism and prejudice, which is a cover for cheating of estates. In other words, physical land and life robbery and genocide. That's what's going on.
I tell you what. Any more questions?
So therefore, those who are practicing it, those who are enforcing it, those who are benefiting from it should be exposed for what they are.
Any more questions or comments? I'm going to say this to you, Rami, or whatever your appellation is on IAMHATV. It is not true that I do not want Moorish Americans to be productive. I just don't want division and divisiveness on my channel. So, and let me say this before I block you again of this channel. I actually was going to look you up. I looked at your video and thought maybe I want to get him on my show, but you have actually come in here and tried to tear up my channel. So I want everybody to be productive, but I'm not going to play these games with you. Come to my block party. There you go. Not playing. Come on, come back with the same, just change your name or something. Anywho, let me see if there are any more serious questions. All right. Well, we found this out. This is from a Duque. Can the government mandate the V for private companies? I was declined the job because I didn't take the jab.
All right, remember, sir, you're not dealing with government. So when you say the government, and this is back to people assuming that, and this is part of the deception. So you see the work that we have to do. The people keep calling these people their government when in fact they're private corporate operatives and organized criminals. They're actually Satanists, in fact. And they've been pretending to be government, and they've been demanding or commanding genocide activities, which you can see documented in Executive Order 11490, which we've been sharing with you for 25 years. You know, and so the deal of it is we must stop looking at them as the authority that we're assuming them to be. And if many of these so-called black leaders have been telling our people the truth, instead of wasting their time and energy with race arguments and false marches and praying, etc., and taking millions of energy notes from them and reestablishing their proper status, many of these economic problems that we're suffering from right now wouldn't exist, and you wouldn't have to be begging Rome for a job under the condition that you allow them to genocide you. However, in principle of the de facto, though it's still de facto, Supreme Court declared that no, they cannot do that. It makes them suable. However, this is again why we must reestablish our proper venue of diversity of nationalities so that we can have proper venue of courts and sue them for these activities, which has not been the case and has not been going on. So therefore, it is important for our people to become competent to do so.
All right, here's the question. Ask Georgia Crew wants me to ask you about the book, I guess, Exemplar of Liberty. Are you familiar with that? Exemplar of Liberty.
What, they think that you have it or what?
I don't know. They said ask you about the book,
No.
Exemplar of Liberty. I do have a book though I want to share.
Yeah.
Here, since we're talking about books, here, I want to highly hold that up. Highly
share with you.
It's called Musical Truth. It's by Mark Devlin. Let them see the side. Let them see how thick it is. Sideways. It's a thick book. Don't let it. It talks about the music industry from a perspective of a DJ who realized how the music industry was being used. It changed and how what it deals with all of the stuff we're talking about and more.
All the platforms.
Don't think it's about music. As a matter of fact, there's Musical Truth and Musical Truth 2. I got both books, but you have to start with this one. If you're on Scrib, Scrib.com, it is on Scrib, but you told me to start getting books again.
Yes.
So this is an amazing book that I highly recommend. So that's a little segue. Let me see if there's any more. Someone asked, "Can you reclaim your status even with open criminal cases?"
Your status is basic in right. I mean, what I would suggest immediately as we're presenting to answer this question is study carefully the distinction between rights and privileges so that your concepts of what rights and privileges are. Study carefully what birthright is, that which is nature's right, meaning that your bloodline, being of Moorish Canaanite, Moabite Canaanite blood, is a natural divine fact. Historically, by descendancy, collectively on the earth, Midgard, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, and a particular fact is those who have been falsely designated as Negroes, blacks, and coloreds and Indians in the Western Hemisphere are in fact Moors, i.e. they are actually Phoenicians, etc. That's a fact. So when you're talking about anything relative to your status, you must be in proper person, i.e. to even have standing relative to a state. So when you're talking about a state, you're talking about rights, the duties, the capacities, and the incapacities that any being has in relationship to organized state government, etc., and to society as a whole. And I think once you study that, you will answer your own question, which is what our desire is for you and for everyone who's listening to this broadcast.
So on that note, if someone does have an open case and they do declare their nationality in the interim,
so
and they make an appearance.
All right, here we go. We go. This must be comprehended that the political platforms, the judicial political platforms that they have you in, is a fraudulent platform. They have no jurisdiction, factually. But de facto, they're taking jurisdiction. Are we clear? Much of the work that you see going on with active Moors, with the activation of, the restoration of, the diversity of nationality, the Article 3, Section 2, constitutional enforcement of the judicial powers pre-established yet adopted for the United States, which should be by law enforced and are by law in place but not activated, is what we should all be seeking to activate. That is the venue that should be activated on your behalf. They already know that unlawfully they have no right to neutralize your status. That is in fact what you call human trafficking. This is again why we've been encouraging Moors for years to activate the Constitution. If you're activating the Constitution, you're activating the consular venue. Because the fact that they have no jurisdiction is established fact. That's not an opinion. They're doing human trafficking.
And we've seen very recently how when that is exercised, they know.
Yeah,
If you know, then it works.
Now,
but if you don't know,
right?
I've seen it. And if
now,
you don't know, they'll take advantage of the fact that you don't know.
Let's look at this, Dr. Naila. And you learned this recently yourself by seeing stuff that many of these people don't see.
Right.
Right. However, so you don't have to be convinced of it because you've seen it for yourself.
Absolutely.
However, the fact that you see it makes it clear that people who've had this information have not been teaching it.
Right.
And if they've not been teaching it, they're enemies to the cause.
Makes sense to me.
It's called sellout.
Makes sense to me.
And they spend more time attacking it, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Now you understand their motives. See, this is what I'm saying earlier, and I'm saying again, Dr. Naila. Once you learn some of these things for yourself, you don't have to see you can see why the divisions are there. Because you'll see there's what? Unconstitutional people who are pretending to be helping our people when they're in it to fill their pockets.
Case in point, when we had the event on the 27th,
mm-hmm.
some Moors flew in using their nationality cards,
which is the right thing to do,
and others were denied.
Exactly, which means the different jurisdictions, right? The different political jurisdictions. Some are starting to do what Donald Trump is doing, enforcing the Republic law, Constitution, and treaties, and some of them are still enforcing de facto color of law under the Klan, etc., usually under the Democratic Party, right? Of color of law. So that's a conflict with them going on too, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Fighting over our state, isn't it? Oh, however, it doesn't make him special.
No.
If you get the point.
No, it does not.
But you need to understand the politics. Once you understand, and this is the thing, Dr. Naila, once you understand these principles, you can look at the politics with a clearer and unbiased mind. It's not a matter of taking sides, it's a matter of taking principle. But understand this, and this is the other thing that many of you need to understand and comprehend. While a lot of, and we've always said to the people, a lot of things we're doing now will not be doing later. And the reason we're telling you this is because you need to be aware of the obligations and duties that pre-exist. However, to tell you ahead of time so you don't get confused, these political platforms that you see are not going to be existing in the future any damn way. However, you need to know who's been taking you for a ride so you can stop cooperating and stop consenting to the Admiralty maritime piracy on the land operations of Unum Sanctum, thinking these people are your government. They are not. Nor the people who keep on pretending that they have dedicated association with these people to help you. They're not. They're criminal activists and they're leeches among your own. However, the rest of the nations are starting to reject them. So the deal of it is that whether our people decide to get active or not, the systems around you are going to collapse anyway. This is the pain that we're talking about earlier, Dr. Naila. Mm-hmm. The people who've been pretending they don't understand this information, they can keep on pretending. And those who don't get it is going to be fodder. This is what I was talking about 18, 20 years ago around the corner.
Well, here's a question from Asa Simon Bay. If patriot colonists who speak on economics reveal true history exposing stolen birthright from copper natives, how will they save themselves economically if they are foreigners or pilgrims?
See, the benefit of the hybrid Europeans that were here are under treaty and constitution. This is why you see a lot of them, a lot of the hybrid Europeans are telling the truth now. You'll see a lot of websites where hybrid Europeans are starting to tell the true history of what's going on here. They may not be telling it all, but they're telling enough to wake up most of the people that didn't know anything. Why? Because they recognize they're being sacrificed by the Satanists that they've been calling their government. And that's the truth. So things we've been telling people for 39, 40 years ago, you see a lot of hybrid Europeans commonly talking about now. And I don't have to name many of them. They're being prominently shared around the internets and the different websites all day long.
Lance, Bad Influence McCoy says, can you ask if you've heard of the Land, Air, and Water Bureau? That's law. That's what law stands for, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Land, Air, and Water.
That is law. That's
law.
That's the estate. That is the estate.
Here's a GINDJAB comment. This comment says that Mesopotamia equals the Potomac River Basin.
And that too, yes. That's true, yeah.
Here's Massive God Squad said, I had a fake so-called judge tell me in traffic court, we have no jurisdiction over more. This is dismissed.
And because he doesn't, because he's not a judge. He is an administrative clerk under bankruptcy of the defunct United States of America Corporation that went sine die in 1861, which I opened up with. Now, there you go. Some will tell the truth and some won't. Because just like anything else, people who have been operating criminally on the land for decades and actually for the last century or more, which you will see the Pope Francis spoke about in his letter to Barack H. Obama. It's not like this stuff is secret. It's not hidden. It's just that you see people don't want to get into it because they recognize that many people that they've trusted or they've been following around or paying them hundreds of notes for so-called education, that they just simply sucking off the people's injury rather than bluntly telling them the truth, that the truth alone will bring the people together to just fix this thing. The people stop supporting it, it gets fixed. It's sort of like if you have a broken window and you put the glass in the window, the wind and the rain stops coming in. It's that complicated, but yet that simple at the same time. If the people would have enforced the Constitution and treaties, we wouldn't be in this situation we're in, economically, socially, and politically. It is that complicated, yet that simple. That's why you see me being redundant on those principles. We could talk about a lot of things, metrology. We could talk about tile cross. We could talk about the salts of the earth, all of which we have talked about over the years. But the deal of it is, you don't fix the basis of where you're being injured, all of the rest of the stuff is like out the window. Like Jack and Jill going up the hill with a pail that has holes in the bottom. Fix the pail before you go up the hill, because you ain't bringing no water back down. It ain't happening. This is really what's happening to us. And I think because of the complexities and the injuries that are happening to the people come into this movement as opportunists, pretending they're really helping the people and they have the answers, but you don't never see them put their necks out on the people on principle. You see them trying to get into people's pockets and make the people followers, which I reject.
It's a question.
Tell the people the truth. Give them the opportunity to take responsibility. Encourage them to take responsibility and teach accordingly. But don't try to rate them or make a living off of them while doing it. I'm not saying that a servant ain't worthy of his hire, but you parasites need to quit it.
What Marvin Green asks, what about taking the steps of getting birth certificate authentication?
A birth certificate, certificate means trade. This is the deal. That's their instrumentality, is not yours. And while the argument is presented in principle, in moral principle, of becoming executor holder of the instrument, they will never give you that instrument with the allonges, and they never do, never did. My issue is, like the rest of the nations of states, rebut them, rebuke them, and all their instrumentalities become moot, which is really what's happening, because the nations of the world is rejecting their bonds that have been based in the birth certificates and the marriage certificates, etc. And so no matter how many times they produce those bottomry instruments, they can no longer sell them. This is why you see that their banking system is collapsing. That has much to do with it. They already knew the fiat was a fraud from the door. It's no new discovery to them. It's just a new discovery to people who didn't know that these people were organized criminals, that they were calling government. They're imposters. But you must accept that, and you must start acting accordingly and treating them accordingly, and stop letting them treat you like you have an obligation to rectify a fraud that they created. Keep this in mind. I suggest that all of you look up seriously in Bouvier's and Black's Law Dictionaries and Bell's Law Dictionary, all the law dictionaries, color of law, color of office. Color of office creates no authority, and it creates no obligation on the part of the people. And creates no authority. See, when the people get tired of the pain that these hybrids are putting on them, they'll start rejecting them. At that point, that's when they lose their power. The people keep putting their faith and requesting these people as if they're your government. They never were. They are not. They're organized criminals and human traffickers. And the instrumentalities that they create are created in straw, in fraud, and they will remain in fraud forever. Except that we keep on sanctioning their frauds, thinking that we're going to get a benefit.
Here's one question. They say DC incorporated, not USA. I read the act of Congress that passed the articles, and there seems to be contradictory language. Can you address this?
Yes, because DC is the United States of America Corporation. So is the IMF, the United States Corporation. So is the Federal Reserve, the United States Corporation. So is the Jesuit Order, the United States Corporation. So is the Bishopric of Rome. They are all one in the name, multi-corporate construct, etc. And all the three-letter agencies are all U.S. corporation. The deal with they give you different names to rate you on different levels, and you think that they're different jurisdictions when they actually all are the Pope of Rome and what they may call the 11 Roman ruling families. 12 or 13 of them, right? Ruling families who have been under the unum sanctum operations, ruling the world secretly under Satanist platforms known as secret societies, Thule Society, Tavistock, Daughters of American Revolution, Kyklos, Ku Klux Klan, Knights of Columbus, etc. All forms of pseudo-masonry, which they have contaminated.
Here's a question. Rob Riella Bay asks, how does a Moor change his national status with a Job and have the SSN removed?
Basically, you can do what is known as a notice of name correction, or what you call appellation correction. And keep in mind, this is back to notes that we made years ago in the book Nomen Substantivum, because people have also been tricked by color colored people among our own, thinking that you have to go to the de facto court venues to correct your name, etc., which actually puts it back into their false jurisdiction. This is why people must know first, when you're looking at any of this information, is that the people who have you been just traditionally looking up or looking at as government are not government. And if you don't absorb that fact, you're going to continue to process incorrectly. This is again why you must activate and organize socially and politically among yourselves. And your proper venue for communicating with them is a consulate venue. That's a fact. And it's not something that we thought of. That's the established rule of law.
Here's the question. Bring up this last one. Can a private member association protect your estate?
No, yes and no in a sense. Because you want to be private, but they have assumed you to be public property because they've already made you as stock through marriage certificates, birth certificates, or car registrations, marriage licenses, etc., Social Security, CUSIC numbers, all of these instrumentalities, and even with their census, they're trying to rebond the people. This is why they're even sending censuses out to get you to agree to be a part of their defunct organization, so they can start creating bonds again and selling them again. That's really the bondage. Now, the fact that now, whether you cooperate with them or not, or rebond yourself, or otherwise put yourself back in bondage voluntarily out of ignorance, helps them. And I suggest that you start recognizing the established fact that we opened up from the beginning of this session. United States Corporation has been dissolved.